Hi everybody, Brian Jones, the Sunday Carpenter. In today's video, I'm going to restore this elephant. Let's check in to see what condition his condition is in. Let me give you a little backstory about the dude. He's been outside in the hot summers and the beating sun and the humid weather. He's been outside in the arid, super dry winters. He's been covered in snow. He's been hit by sleet and rain for years and years and years. The pores are cracking open. The old finish is almost completely gone. He's in need of some repairs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the dude and I'm going to fill this cracks up with some epoxy. Take some rough sandpaper, sand them down smooth, and then refinish him with some oil. Hopefully once I've got him all cleaned up, he'll be good for another 15 years out here. Not sure this is going to work, but I figured I'd try some cheap epoxy, see if I can fill up those gaps. Having never used epoxy, I've read the instructions, maybe a first for me. It says just mix these two together, mix them up really well, and you're good to go. Let's see if it works. I chose the 90-minute kind over the 5-minute stuff for two reasons. One, I'm not in a hurry. And two, 90 minutes should give me some extra playtime to get it into the cracks. I'm mixing it all on a old milk carton. And I'm going to use a dessert spoon, a plastic disposable kind, to apply it. What I'm doing now is putting gobs of it onto the crack. I'm going to scrape it and hopefully that'll push it into the cracks. If anyone's got any good tips for using this instant cheap epoxy, put them down in the comments below. I'd love to learn from all of you out there that are watching. Yeah. We can all teach and help each other out. I don't think you need to watch me fill all these cracks, so I'm going to stop the camera and I'll come back when I'm done. Once it's hardened and cured, I'll sand it. And I might need to actually put some more in to fill up the gaps. It's starting to cloud up and looks like the rain's about to come. So I'm gonna put him someplace where he'll stay dry, and I'll come back to him in a few days when the weather gets nice. To save myself some time and some sandpaper, I'm going to remove some larger pieces of epoxy with my chisel. Then I'll go over the whole thing with sandpaper. The cracks are still kind of open. A lot of the epoxy seeps down into the cracks, so I'm going to have to put some more epoxy on after I've sanded it. The chisel was doing okay, but this wood is so dry and brittle that I found it easier just to scrape the epoxy off. This should make things a little bit faster. The scraper's from Stu Mac. It's actually meant for guitars, but it works great. Gone over this side of the elephant with 180 grit sandpaper. Now I'm going to turn them around and do the other side. I had to take a break this morning. I was doing pretty good with the scraper, and I had Zutza on this side of my head. I had a migraine on this side of my head. It just put me down for a couple hours. But I'm doing better now. I'm going to do the other side. I'm just hand sanding this with some 80 grit. Then I'm gonna have to fill these cracks up a little bit more with some epoxy. And then I'll sand it down with something finer, I think. So far we're just doing 80 because it's pretty rough. Sometimes it's nice not using power tools. It's a beautiful spring day out here. I can hear the birds chirping. So now I can enjoy the spring warmth and those birds and the breeze, the sound of the rustling trees. Yep, sometimes it's nice to go old-fashioned. Now you might say, hey, use a sanding block. There's not a flat piece on this elephant. There's no place on here that's flat on this elephant. So I'm using my hand so I can get in the curves and the contours of his ears, his neck, and everything else. So before you start commenting, use a sanding block. That's why. After finishing sanding him off camera, I inspected the cracks and they needed some more epoxy. So I filled them up for a second time with epoxy, then scraped that off and sanded it again. I left the epoxy work and the sanding work off camera. You probably don't need to see me sand any more than you already have. He's been wiped down. I got all the dust off him. I super glued in his tusk and he's ready for some oil. The wood is really dry, so he's probably going to need a couple of coats of this. What I've got here is tung oil. I figured it'd be good for outdoor use. Got some gloves to keep my hands clean. And I've got an old sock that my son has worn to death. I'm going to use that as my applicator. It's really easy to see a huge color difference where the oil's been applied and where it hasn't been applied yet. This poor guy really needed a cleanup. This side has been mostly oiled. You can see the color returning to the wood. This is what it was before. That's what it's becoming now. Night and day. I was using the sock and applying the oil with no problems, except for where there were fine details on his trunk and on his sides and legs where the carver carved in lots of grooves to represent hair, and the oil just wasn't soaking down into the grooves. The base was very, very dry and the tung oil was not spreading at all. What I did is I took tung oil and paint thinner and I mixed these 50-50. What that did was make it a lot easier for the oil to get down into the grooves, because they're really quite fine grooves, and it spread a lot easier on the base. Thanks for watching that video, everybody. I hope you really liked it. If you did, hit the like and the subscribe button down below. And if you have any comments, feel free to type those down in the comment section. I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. Thanks for watching. See you next time.